You wake up every morning believing that life can be managed. You write your plans, set your alarms, outline your goals, and move through the hours as if the world will obey your schedule. The sense of control feels comforting, like holding the steering wheel of destiny. But the truth you rarely admit is that the road beneath you is not yours to design. It only allows you to travel for a while. You build systems to feel safe. Calendars, budgets, routines, maps, all fragile illusions that whisper, "You're in charge." And when the day unfolds exactly as expected, you call it success. When it doesn't, you call it chaos. But the universe never promised predictability. It only promised participation. The ancient voices spoke often of this paradox. They said that a man may plan his way, but his steps are guided by forces unseen. Still, we continue to act as if certainty were a prize that could be earned through discipline and intellect. The wise know better, yet even they struggle against the temptation to be gods of their own fate. Control is not evil. It's survival instinct. It helps you organize chaos into something livable. But like any tool, when worshipped, it becomes a cage. You start believing that every outcome depends on your perfection. You pray less and calculate more. You replace faith with forecasts, hope with strategy, and wonder with schedules. You can't help it. Control feels good. It gives you measurable progress in a world that's impossible to measure. But there's a cost. The more you try to dominate life, the smaller your soul becomes. The human heart wasn't made to hold everything. It was made to trust something greater. Every generation builds its own illusion. Ours is data. We think numbers can outsmart mystery. Algorithms can predict love. Analytics can guarantee success. We think if we collect enough information, we'll finally outmaneuver uncertainty. But no amount of precision can tame the wind. Somewhere between your plans and the unpredictable, you start to sense the quiet arrogance of control. It hides beneath good intentions. It says, if I prepare enough, nothing will go wrong. Yet life laughs softly, not out of cruelty, but because it remembers what you forgot, that growth requires surprise. The more you plan for perfection, the more fragile you become. One disruption, one diagnosis, one heartbreak, and your entire illusion collapses. You mistake loss of control for loss of meaning, when in fact it's the beginning of something deeper: surrender. Control promises peace, but breeds anxiety. You're never done checking, fixing, adjusting, improving. You build walls around your plans, afraid that anything unplanned might destroy them. But in doing so, you miss the serendipity that makes life divine. And so, you stand at the edge of every tomorrow with a pen in your hand, pretending to write the script. But tomorrow doesn't read your handwriting. It writes its own. The need for control begins with fear, the quiet terror of not knowing what comes next. You call it responsibility, but beneath that word lives insecurity. If you could just predict the future, you believe you could protect yourself from pain. But the truth is cruel and freeing. You can't and you never will. You plan your days like fortresses. Every hour is a brick of order against the wild wind of the unknown. But control is never complete. It's borrowed. The storm always finds a crack. And when it does, you realize that the walls you built to protect you have become your prison. The wise warned of this long ago. They said that the man who trusts in his own certainty is like one who builds on sand. Every wave will remind him of humility. Still, we build, because admitting uncertainty feels like failure in a world that worships confidence. Modern culture sells the illusion of mastery. Be the architect of your life. Manifest your destiny. Design your reality. But control is not creation. Creation is collaboration, a dance with mystery, not a domination of it. The moment you stop dancing and start dictating, beauty leaves the room. You see this illusion everywhere, in finance, in love, in faith. We ensure, we predict, we predefine. We try to measure peace in percentages, but control doesn't eliminate risk. It eliminates wonder. It replaces awe with anxiety, turning every miracle into a spreadsheet. The truth is that life is not a machine to be operated. It's a mystery to be experienced. The rain falls on both the wise and the foolish. The unexpected doesn't discriminate. No algorithm can prevent heartbreak. No strategy can prevent loss. And yet, we keep trying as if predictability were proof of worth. There is a sacred peace in realizing you are not in charge of the wind, that you can sail wisely, but you cannot command the sea. The ship belongs to you, but the ocean does not. And somehow that truth, once terrifying, becomes holy. Every interruption, every failure, every detour, they are not threats to your plan. They are invitations to humility. They remind you that control is not ownership, it's stewardship. You are not the author of the story, but you are invited to participate in its unfolding. When you stop clinging to certainty, you make space for faith. Faith isn't blindness. It's trust in what your control cannot see. It's the quiet courage to walk through the fog without demanding to see the road. The illusion of control fades the moment you face what you can't fix. And in that surrender, sooner or later, life breaks your illusion. Gently if you're lucky, violently if you're not. A phone call changes your plans. A diagnosis rewrites your future. A loss you didn't expect shatters your logic. And in that moment, you face the truth that every wise soul eventually learns. You were never in control, only in denial. The moment of collapse is sacred. It feels like failure, but it's really freedom in disguise. You stop fighting reality. You stop trying to force what was never yours to command. You begin to trade anxiety for awareness, fear for faith, control for connection. The wise have always embraced uncertainty as a teacher. They know that the storm doesn't come to destroy, but to reveal what's unshakable. You don't know what tomorrow brings, but maybe that's mercy, because if you did, you'd stop living today. You realize how small your control truly is, over weather, over time, over hearts, over outcomes. The tighter you grip, the faster things slip away. But when you release your grip, life flows again. The river doesn't stop for the one who tries to dam it. It only changes direction. Control is rooted in fear of loss, but loss itself becomes the cure. When you lose what you thought you needed, you discover what actually matters. You begin to see that control was never safety. It was separation from surrender. There's a strange beauty in powerlessness. It's the soil where compassion grows. When you can't control outcomes, you start to understand empathy. You stop judging others for their chaos because you finally recognize your own. Every fall from control becomes a fall into reality. The dream of mastery gives way to the miracle of humility. You stop demanding answers and start asking better questions. What is this moment teaching me? Replaces, why is this happening to me? The ancients said that wisdom begins with reverence, with the admission that mystery is not the enemy, but the essence of truth. To control everything would mean to remove wonder from the world, and a world without wonder is already dead. You begin to thank the very moments you once cursed, the detours, the failures, the heartbreaks, because they humbled you into freedom. You stop seeking control and start seeking alignment. You learn that surrender is not the end of strength, but the beginning of peace. And slowly, the pieces of life you tried to manage begin to settle on their own. At last, you begin to see control for what it truly was, an illusion born of fear and sustained by pride. You stop trying to be the god of your story and rediscover the joy of being human in it. Life becomes lighter, simpler, more sacred. You wake up no longer demanding certainty but seeking clarity. You realize that uncertainty isn't the enemy. It's the space where faith grows. Every unknown becomes an invitation to trust instead of an obstacle to conquer. You start to make plans, but you hold them with open hands. You prepare, but you no longer panic when plans change. You still steer the ship, but now you respect the sea. And that shift, that surrender, becomes your new definition of wisdom. You stop asking, how can I control this? And start asking, what can I learn from this? And in that single change of question, your whole life reorients from anxiety to awareness. You find peace not in prediction, but in presence. The future stops being your idol, and the moment becomes your altar. You finally understand what the ancients meant when they said, "Sufficient for today is its own grace." You begin to notice beauty in unpredictability, in storms, in surprises, in interruptions. You realize that the most meaningful moments of your life were never planned. They found you when you stopped trying to find them. True control was never about mastering outcomes. It was about mastering yourself, your reactions, your fears, your trust. The external world will always be wild, but the soul that surrenders becomes calm in any storm. And so you walk slower, breathe deeper, and speak softer. You stop trying to edit every chapter before it's written. You live with the quiet assurance that not knowing is not failure. It is faith in motion. Life will still surprise you, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully. But you'll no longer see that as loss of control. You'll see it as participation in a story bigger than you. The chaos becomes conversation. The unknown becomes holy ground. In the end, the illusion of control dissolves like mist in the morning sun. What remains is trust, not in outcomes, but in order, not in prediction, but in presence.